Today's episode of True Crime Tuesday is brought to you by Mint Mobile. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/darkness. That's mintmobile.com/darkness. Welcome into the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. I'm excited to have our guest on today. He is world famous, folks, and he has a brand new book out there on the DELPHI murders. And I'll tell you, this case is probably just as confusing, twisting, and turning as you could possibly get. The book we're talking about today, The DELPHI Murders, The Quest to Find the Man on the Bridge, was written by the host of True Crime Garage, Nick Edwards, along with Brian Whitney. We're going to jump right into it today because there is so much to get into and so many different suspects to talk about as well. I tell you, folks, I got to spend some time this weekend with this book. It is a fascinating book. And I want to tell you a little bit about that book, and we'll get into it with the author here, Nick Edwards, in just a moment. I want to tell you a little bit about Nick. Nick is an ardent victim rights advocate, a crime researcher and writer, and of course, the co-host of the globally popular True Crime Garage podcast. And no, I will not spoil the surprise of who the captain is. You have to read the book to find out who he is. He is a founding board member of the Porchlight Project, an Ohio-based nonprofit providing free private investigation, DNA testing, and media support for unsolved cases of abduction and murder. He's also on the board of the All the Lost Girls, which is a nonprofit seeking justice for female strangulation cold cases in the U.S. Since 2014, Nick has contributed to and sponsored the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Folks, let's welcome to True Crime Tuesday, Nick Edwards. Hi, Nick. How are you?
Great, Tim. How are you today? I'm very excited to be on Darkness Radio, True Crime Tuesday, chatting with you.
Well, we're excited to have you, my friend. I had a hard time getting through this book knowing that we're still at a crux point where we don't have a conviction. That to me is one of the toughest things, I think, reading your book. Although I'm not going to jump to the end here. I want to go through some of the points in the book, and then we'll build from there. But what's heartbreaking about this case is the fact that you had two innocent girls at 13 and 14 years old who lost their lives, and a whole area of Indiana that has been trying for years, and including yourself, that's been trying for years to find a killer or get these clues. And it seems like the wheels of justice just grind incredibly slow. First of all, before we go any further, tell me about your personal, I guess we could call it frustration as to how slow those wheels are grinding, even though you have a lot of people working behind the scenes to get this conviction.
Well, it was a very difficult investigation, a complicated investigation. And for all we know, we're still waiting answers on a lot of the portions of the case itself, the crimes committed, who done it, and the investigation itself. Those answers and those blanks will be filled in at some point. But currently we sit here and we still do not know everything. Yes, there's been a man that's been arrested and charged and awaiting trial for these horrible crimes, but still a lot of questions left. And why did it take so long to find him? It was 5.5 years or so before an arrest was made, and they had an image of the suspect. They had him, a brief video of him walking on the Monon High Bridge. They had audio of him saying, "Guys down the hill." And so what a weird investigation, what a weird just situation and scenario altogether, where you have a case that drags on and is unsolved without an arrest, without charges brought forward for so long, when you have the guy's image and his voice. That is a rarity in any homicide investigation. But, a lot of times we know this, the statistics and pans this out all the time. Stranger on stranger crimes are by far the most difficult to investigate. They are by far the most complicated because if they truly are strangers on both ends, victim and suspect, victim and perpetrator, there is nothing really that connects the two of them other than the homicide itself. And so typically, Tim, and I know your listeners know this, I'm not educating anybody here, but typically person A gets angry at person B. And they know each other. They run in the same circles. They might even be related.
Right.
And then person A kills person B. That's how 95%, 97% of homicides tend to work. And so then police and investigators go and they investigate the crime, and they start finding out real quickly who is probably responsible. Here, we don't have that scenario. We have two teenage girls that are out in a beautiful setting, right? They're out on, and what is the best way to describe it would be like a park, something like a state park or a large park with a trail system. And they are out walking on this abandoned old railroad bridge called the Monon High Bridge. And out there in Delphi, Indiana, which is about 250 miles west of me, it's like a rite of passage, this bridge. It's very typical for teenagers to go out there and walk across this bridge. It's about, from my understanding, about 65 feet up in the air. There's no rails to like hold on to. You're just walking on the old railroad ties, I guess, on this old rickety bridge. When I was a teenager, I'd probably walk across it. As an adult, no, thank you. I'd probably take get me out about 6-7 feet, and I'm turning around. But yeah, from my understanding, it's a rite of passage, and unfortunately, our two victims, Liberty German and Abigail Williams, they were out there that day in February. It was an unseasonably warm day for February, and Abby had walked across this bridge prior. This was something she had done before. I don't know who with. My guess, she has an older sibling, and maybe when we have older siblings, we tend to do things at a younger age. But Abby, her best friend, I mean, these two. You want to talk about BFF? This is BFF 100%. I mean, these two were so close that if you saw Abby without Libby, you'd go, "Hey, where's Libby?" And if you saw the reverse, you'd say, "Hey, where's Abby?" You just expected to see the two of them together constantly, and it makes it all the more sad. Those two kids loved each other, and that day, Abby, if you break down their relationship, I would guess that Abby was that Libby was more of the bigger sister, if you had to choose one in the friendship, and she was taking her friend Abby out there, and Abby was going to walk the bridge for the first time, and they encountered pure evil out there on the trails that day. And it's been headline news ever since. This is one of those cases. This happens in small town, middle America. And then next thing you know, we got digital billboards in 46 different states and over $200,000 reward that's put together by a lot of great people trying to find justice for these two girls. And that included the Indianapolis Colts organization and former Indianapolis Colt Pat McAfee. Yeah,
and that says something when you have people stepping up the way they did, and not only that, but right after the girls went missing, you had quite a few people in the town who got together right away, and we're talking within an hour or two, got together and started canvassing the area looking for them, which really says something as well, because when you think about suburban, urban type areas, when someone goes missing, even on an Amber Alert, how many people really go out and start looking for a missing child? It's not many. But when you talk about a small community and you talk about that togetherness, it's really impressive the type of mobilization you can get in a community when something like that happens.
And in this situation, it was just as you said. We have Libby, who had a good amount of extended family who was on the scene relatively early looking for the two girls. So they were supposed to be retrieved by Libby's father, picked up at the trailhead drop off where they were dropped off prior by Libby's sister. And so they were supposed to be picked up that afternoon, a little after 3-ish. There wasn't an exact time for the pickup, more of a rough time, and Dad was going to text or call his daughter, pick them up, and then unfortunately that's when the flags start going up, right? The alarm is raised. The girls are not where they're supposed to be, but they're teenage girls. And if I told you that it's incredibly uncommon for teenagers to not be where they're supposed to be, I'd be lying to you, right? I mean, it's probably more common that teenagers are not where they're supposed to be. And so I'm assuming that the families, like all of us, just thought, you know what? This is the last time they get to go out on their own, or sure enough, I let them go out. Now they're not where they're supposed to be. They're taking advantage. And so we got the extended family of Libby German out there looking for the girls, and they don't find anything. And it got dark that night, and the sheriff and firefighters, there were other people out there searching that evening. But at some point, the sheriff had to call off the search. And he caught a lot of flack for that over the years. But the sheriff has no way of knowing that they've been murdered. We're talking about an area where there's not a lot of homicides that take place, especially the murder of children. So no one has any reason to think that. Again, they're teenagers. And in fact, that very night, you can see Mike Patty and Abby's mom on the news, on the local 11 o'clock news. And I mean, yeah, they obviously look and sound concerned, but nobody's panicked. Right? Nobody's panicking at this point because you still think you're going to find them. Maybe at the worst, you're thinking maybe somebody slipped, fell, broke an ankle, and they're kind of stuck somewhere for whatever reason. But yeah, they the next morning when the searches reconvened, now we have hundreds of volunteers out there. I believe that it was about 300 people.
Wow.
Ultimately show up on that day, and they're out searching for the girls, and unfortunately they find them around noon, a little after noon, and they know right away we're dealing with a homicide. This was not an accident. They knew immediately that foul play was the result of the two girls' deaths.
And in a moment, if I can cite it from the book, in a moment that is in one of those moments that you go that I know I did that when I read the book. Was it Abby or Libby's older sister almost comes across the bodies, but it's the person who found the bodies that told the older sister, no, don't come over here, and actually took her away from the scene.
Yes. So they had broken down into a few different search parties, right? Mm-hmm. Like a handful of people, maybe 10 at the most, are in these different search parties, and they have they're given their little areas to search. And the search party one of the search parties closest to, because Kelsey was out there searching as well. She's in the search party, that basically the next one over. And she starts hearing that, they found a shoe. And they're shouting out the description of the shoe, and she hears this, and she goes, that sounds exactly like my sister's shoe. And so her natural instinct, in fact, she says something, so, I mean, charming in a weird way to look at it, but I think of it as charming and cute. She brought like a breakfast bar, a granola bar out there, because she thought, well, as soon as I find my sister, a bottle of water and a granola bar, she's going to be hungry and thirsty because she's been gone all night.
Right.
And I mean, what an act of kindness. So, her natural instinct, like the rest of us, would be to run to your loved one. Mm-hmm. And she starts to go, and then somebody in her search party who knew her, knew the family very well, I think had some intuition of, okay, they've been found, but might not be, you may not want to go over there because whatever it is, you cannot unsee that. And so at least she was spared the images of the murder scene where the girls were found.
What a nightmare, Nick. I mean,
absolute nightmare. And I say this in the book time and time again, and I say it on our podcast a lot, because unfortunately, one of the biggest topics that we cover on the podcast is cold cases, and we're regularly, Tim, once a month covering a child murder cold case, and so it's something that we have a good amount of experience in storytelling with, and it's by far, I mean, one of the most dark and difficult, heavy subjects to discuss. But when these cases go unsolved, you have people that are hurt and broken forever, for decades and decades. Yeah. And if we stop talking about it, if everybody stops talking about it, this case goes away. Those cases go away. And at some point, if the stories all stop, the pictures start fade, it's almost like it never happened. And that, I will not stand for that. I will never tolerate that at all. And so we talk about these stories, but one thing I point out every time is a child murder is not just a crime against that victim, against the family. It is a crime against the entire community. And when that happens, the cases that get solved are the ones where the community rallies around itself and huddles together, and they become strong and united. And that happened in this Delphi case. Yes, it took 5.5 years, almost 6 years to get charges, but we sit here with a man in jail awaiting trial now. That's a much better situation than we were looking at 6 months or a year ago. And so if the community rallies together, these things tend to get in a better. I'll never say that there's closure for someone to get over a tragedy like this, especially parents and siblings, but it at least provides some answers. And I believe it's might be the first step in some form of healing for the family, for the parents, and for the community.
Let me ask you this question, and it's a gruesome question to ask, so I hesitate in asking it. In this situation with Abby and Libby, they were found relatively quickly after the murder. You have other cases that I know you deal with on True Crime Garage where people go years, decades without finding their loved ones, and maybe they do eventually. What do you think is more mentally, spiritually, physically torturous, to go without that loved one for years and decades, and then eventually find them, knowing that in your mind and in your heart, you've resolved the fact that they're gone, but eventually get those remains, or the fact that you found them immediately and you had hope that they were just going to be missing overnight, yet there's the shock that you've found them and they're dead?
Yeah, it would be very difficult for me to have a great answer here, Tim, because I've never had to experience anything close to this at all. But typically what I've seen, and from what I can gather from all the cases we've covered over the years, and talking to victims and victims' loved ones, their families, and everyone else, it's the loss and the not knowing that are the most devastating parts of these crimes. And both scenarios you set up, there's the loss. But in the one scenario of where a victim isn't found for months or years, or sometimes a decade or so, or ever, there's that not knowing is paramount to where we have a situation where, like with Libby and Abby, where they're found within 24 hours of when they go missing. And the other thing too is, and this is something we regularly talk about on True Crime Garage, is time is the killer. Time is the killer of evidence. Mm-hmm. And when you have remains that are not found for a long period of time, you have a crime scene that is not investigated or processed for a long period of time. Time is the killer of evidence, and that will hurt the case. That will hurt the investigation. That will lessen the probability of ever getting a conviction. And so that too, these people need answers, right? You can't bring their loved one back, but at least we can hope to give them some kind of answers. And anytime that they're denied those answers, regardless of how of why, that's something too that, you know, it's I cannot imagine what any of these victims' loved ones have gone through. Like I said, I've talked to a bunch of victims' loved ones over the years, and it's always something that I look forward to meeting the people, because I love people, man.
Sure. Oh yeah. Me too.
But I kind of limp into it because I'm like I'm heartbroken. You know, I try to be as empathetic as possible and sympathetic as possible. And I've had people break down on my shoulder and cry, and it's hard for me not to do the same. And I met Mike Patty and Becky Patty, and they have a different last name because they're grandparents, but they were raising Libby in a parental fashion. And they were filling the void of the parents. We had one parent that was living out of state, and then their son Derek, who is the father, and he wasn't absent from her life.
Yeah.
He just, you know, when she was young, he wasn't in a position to be a father. And so Becky and Mike Patty took over that role, and I met them, and they're the nicest, most wonderful people. But you can see the heartbreak on their faces, just even during casual conversation. I've spoke with both of them briefly. I've had the privilege of speaking to Kelsey extensively over some other podcasts that I did, a show called Who Killed. But that's the other heartbreaking part of it. It's like this horrible, the worst tragedy I can think of, the most horrible neighborhood crime I could imagine, happened to these wonderful, lovely, just good-hearted people. And I said this in the book too. The way that they handled this, and look, I don't know behind the scenes, of course. I'm sure their damn hearts have been ripped out of their chests. What do you want?
Yeah.
But at least in front of the cameras, or when I saw them in person or watched them on stage at CrimeCon and other events, and interview after interview, they handled themselves with grace. They could have went out there. They handled themselves with and I think in some way, hopefully, I think they taught the rest of us how to be stronger about this case that didn't affect us the way that it affected them.
Absolutely. You know, let's talk about the family for a moment, because you do put it eloquently in the book. You talk about the fact that, you know, Libby and Abby had a little bit of a different family situation, and I think it was misconstrued by the community. And in that, the family situation was used against the family at the hardest time in their family history, at a time when these girls are deceased. And one of the things I find when we cover these different cases is, as the public is searching for answers, as the public becomes emotionally involved in a case, the first thing they want to do, because they've seen this trope on many a TV show that they watch, is they want to turn the case inward. They want to turn the case, first of all, on the family, and they want to find a place to blame within the family for the death of a young child, especially. If you could, Nick, explain to our audience why the public wanted to turn inward towards the family and look towards a suspect in the family first for the deaths of these two kids.
So I've covered a lot of cases for True Crime Garage, and one thing that I've learned over the years is the older a case, the longer that a case has gone unsolved, gone cold. And when I interview family members, people close to the case or the investigation, one thing I've found that it's almost 100% of the time, Tim, the longer a case goes unsolved, the more suspicious the family is of everyone. and I've seen that time and time again. Not every time, but it's a pretty shared trait. And I don't know if I'm guessing that has to carry over to the masses somehow, right? Where a case gets, it's not solved. There must be something wrong with it. What could be wrong with it? Well, and this is just kind of a sad thing. Like it's something that I really got disgusted by in this case was people coming up with their own assumptions or believing that the families were weird for like, oh, your family makeup is not cookie cutter. It doesn't look exactly like the makeup of my family. So you guys must be weird. And there must be some weird things going on within the four walls of the homes that these kids lived in.
Yeah.
And it's no, like from what I've seen doing hundreds of cases on True Crime Garage, heck, the mom, dad, and two kids in the middle class neighborhood tend to have the weirder family than the one that makes up a little bit different. I mean, I got friends and loved ones who are, raising adopted kids or a lesbian couple who raise kids or grandparents raising children. And guess what? When those who can't or should not be raising kids, better people step up. That's the way that things tend to work.
Yeah.
And here we had better people step up, and they were providing the best childhood, the best experience, the best family that they could for somebody that they loved with all their heart. And then people on the outside want to go, well, that's weird. Grandma and grandpa are right. No, there was nothing weird about that to Libby. There was nothing weird. Abby didn't think her family was weird. She lived with her mom, and then people want to make things up and go, oh, Mike Patty looks like Bridge Guy. You know what? Go fly a kite, because I'm here to tell you, like, that's the thing that drove me nuts about this case, Tim, was everybody, this business online with, oh, this guy looks like Bridge Guy. That guy looks like Bridge Guy. It's like, we didn't know what he looked like. If we knew what he looked like, it wouldn't have taken 5.5 years to arrest somebody. That picture, that pixelated picture, was not a good picture. The only thing it could provide us, Tim, was that we knew the suspect was a white male. We knew that the person that did it was there on those trails that day between 3 and 5 p.m. And actually, we could back that up a little earlier, about 2 p.m. to 4 or 5 p.m. And so all that picture for me could do would be to eliminate people that did not look like that man. Mm-hmm. You couldn't put that picture next to somebody and say, this guy looks exactly like Bridge Guy. No, you just couldn't do that because it was a terrible picture. But you could put that image next to a good amount of the population and go, well, she wasn't Bridge Guy, or this Hispanic individual was not Bridge Guy. This African-American male was not Bridge Guy. All that image could do was tell us who was not Bridge Guy, not who is.
Right. Speaking of, we have to take our break. We talk a little bit about the footage that the girls got of Bridge Guy. It was important in the case, and it was important in trying to find out who Bridge Guy was. But you just pointed out yourself, Nick, that footage was pixelated. Now, did it help or hurt the case? We'll talk about that when we come back from the break. As you pointed out, it was pixelated footage. And there was a little bit of a problem in how that footage got out and how it got to the masses. There was only 43 seconds. We'll talk about the fact that there was more footage out there and why it took so long for us to find out about it, or for anybody to find out about it. We'll talk about that as well on the other side of the break. When we come back, more with Nick Edwards, and we'll talk about the Delphi murders and exactly what that footage did with Bridge Guy. And did it help the case? Did it hurt the case? And did it help narrow down a suspect, or did it just widen the field? We're talking the Delphi murders, the quest to find the man on the bridge. We're talking with Nick Edwards, the co-writer of that book, and also Brian Whitney, the other co-writer of the book, not here with us today, but those are the two writers of the book, The Delphi Murders, The Quest to Find the Man on the Bridge. We'll have a link in the description of this program. By all means, go out and order it during the break. You're listening to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the Best in True Crime Podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Our guest is Nick Edwards from True Crime Garage. He's also the co-writer of The Delphi Murders, The Quest to Find the Man on the Bridge, along with Brian Whitney. When we left you, we were talking about the footage of Bridge Guy and the fact that the girls had shot that footage, 43 seconds worth. And the footage... In the footage, Bridge Guy says, "Guys down the hill." And we've got a description of what this guy looks like, Nick. But does it help or does it hurt? And I want to ask you that question right off the bat. Did it help or did it hurt the investigation?
It absolutely helped, 100%. Like, if you ask me that question 100 times, maybe 1 out of 100 I might stumble and say it hurt. But I would say I firmly believe it. It absolutely helped the case. Now, what happens, though, is it complicates the investigation because you get everybody and their cousin and then that person's cousin, too, from the other side calling in tips about, oh, I know who Bridge Guy is, or so-and-so is definitely Bridge Guy. Here's the weird guy that I want to tell cops about. And then in this case, you got people even across state lines that are emailing side-by-sides of people that they're finding on Facebook and on the internet going, oh, this guy, it has to be Bridge Guy. He looks like Bridge Guy. Well, like, unfortunately for the case, if the image of the man walking across that bridge was the image of a white male with 2 heads, well, it would have been really easy to solve the case, right? And
Sure.
to go find and make an arrest. But that's not the situation. The image that was captured that day by Libby was that of a pretty regular looking dude and very pixelated, like you said. Everybody's experienced this. We've taken pictures from a distance on our phone and we in the moment we're like, oh, that's a good picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at it later, you're sitting at home going through your pictures from your vacation, cold beer in your hand, and you go, wow, I've got a lot of terrible pictures, a lot of pictures to edit or to delete altogether. And here's the deal. When I get asked this question a lot, and what I like to do is I like to flip it and reverse it, right? Like Missy Elliott told us to
Sure.
do, right?
Yep.
You flip it and you reverse it. So flip it and reverse it. I say to you, Tim,
Okay.
it took over 5.5 years to make an arrest of Richard Allen and charge him with these 2 homicides. And that is with Libby German being so brave and smart in the moment to pull out her phone, capture his image of him walking on the bridge, and then conceal the phone and let it roll while he says and instructs them and demands and directs them down the hill. I throw the question to you and to everyone else. If it took that long with all of that information to make that arrest, how long do you think it would have taken to make an arrest had she not captured his image or his voice on audio? I would wager a Franklin right now that we are sitting here without an arrest.
Oh, yeah. I'll give you my answer straight out. I'll say decades.
Yes, if at all, right?
Yeah.
And so if they don't have DNA, which it does not look like they do,
Right.
we are probably talking about a case that never gets solved.
Yeah.
A case that there's never an arrest. So as difficult as the image made the investigation, and as difficult as much more work that it made for the investigators, ultimately it was 100% necessary to this investigation to have that information. And then knowing what we know now too about Richard Allen and the way that he gets arrested, he, according to a police report and according to him and his attorneys, he spoke with law enforcement in 2017. Now, I don't want to go down this road too much because
Please.
it's a little tricky.
Okay.
Because it sounds like he may have spoke to a resource officer or natural resources officer, conservation officer, something of that nature. That doesn't sound to me like he marched into the sheriff's department and said, let me talk to your homicide detective.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what happened. But
No.
he spoke with somebody that took a report back in 2017. when the case was fresh. I have to believe he never talks to anybody at all if that image wasn't out there.
Yeah. No, he doesn't say anything. He doesn't say anything.
Exactly.
And that's a CYA moment too. Most definitely. And some of the things that are said by his attorney, and again, we're going to talk about a couple of these things a little bit later in the program, but some of the things that are said initially by his attorney are a little jarring in that his attorney covers even more at the time of his arrest and says, well, come on now, we're dealing with an innocent man. This is a man who held on to all of his clothes from that day, and he never really left the area. And let's face it, he's given over all of his guns, and he had his weapons tested for ballistics. And would an innocent man do all of this? I mean, we're prepared to show that ballistics is an inexact science and this, that, and the other. I want you to respond to this, Nick. Do you feel like even the lawyers are spinning a little out of control here in trying to create a story for Mr. Miller?
Well, I think that they're doing their job. I think that they're doing what they're paid to do and what I would want them to do if they were representing me. I think you question everything and you spin it however you want to spin it. But to me, I mean, it doesn't take I don't have to be incredibly smart to hear the lawyers say things like, well, he still owns the same car. He still owns the same gun. He never threw away his clothing. He never moved away. These things point to obvious signs of innocence. No, he could also just be incredibly dumb.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing I thought.
Right. It's like, and maybe maybe he hung on to a thing or two because it became sentimental to him. It had some kind of emotional value or fulfilled some reliving of this horrible act to him. So, I mean, we don't want to try to crawl inside that mind and figure out why he did not discard of those things. Now, I would bet we did. We actually have a show coming out on the 18th. I apologize. We have a show coming out on the 11th where we go through some of the more recent stuff in regard of Richard Allen and the new information that came out late last month. And so we know all of the items that were seized from his home, and a large amount of bladed weapons were removed from the home. Some of them are even more like decorative collector item type, ones that you wouldn't be out there using in the woods. But we know these items were collected from them, and we know that they were killed with a sharp object or sharp instrument. And so that is newer information. And what I'm thinking here, Tim, is that if he did get rid of anything that would point more toward guilt, I bet you, I'm hoping that I'm wrong, but knowing that he was next to water when the girls were killed, it would have been very easy for him to discard of a blade or a knife.
Yeah.
Close to the scene or on his way fleeing the scene. So that item may have been discarded, and that points towards guilt. Now, I hope that I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong, the better part, Tim, would be that they confiscated every blade this guy's ever owned, and he was dumb enough to hang on to all of them, and that he thought he cleaned them. But, you remove that handle, you remove that hilt, and they very regularly find blood or DNA. And if they find the girl's blood or DNA on something in his home, that man's goose is cooked.
Yes, indeed. And that's going to lead to something we'll talk about here at the end. I want to go through a few of the suspects that you talk about, because there are some other suspects in the book that are legitimate. And there's one in particular. There's a father-son team that you tie to the case that are very, very interesting. Could you tell us about them? And if anybody other than Richard Miller is the guy who's sitting in jail for this isn't the killer, then this team has to be. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Kleins. So father and son, Tony and Kagan Klein, the son Kagan was neck deep in catfishing young girls and tricking them. He's creating these different social media profiles and online profiles, and he's making developing relationships, online and social media relationships with underage girls, and getting them to send him nude photos or even videos of them masturbating and things of that nature. And he's also buddying up with these other creeps online, which they do. That's what they do.
Yeah.
And they trade this stuff. But at one point he's pretending to be a young girl himself, and that's a ruse that he used. And then later he's using this profile that he created, which was Anthony Shots, a profile that's known as Anthony Shots. And in this profile, you got this very Justin Bieber looking type model guy, that tan, got the 6-pack abs, good looking kid. Looks like he's maybe 19 or 20. So, not so scary to a 14-year-old or 15-year-old girl, but and supposed to be a character that has a bunch of money, real cool guy, sports cars and all of that. That's who you're communicating with, little girls. At least that's what they thought. And it turns out Kagan Klein could not look further. Could not look any more the total opposite of the character that I just described. And those poor girls, if they would have known who they were really talking to. But anyway, that this is, turns out that these two probably didn't have anything to do with it. It's still very difficult. The nobody's charged Tony Klein with anything, and he may not have participated in any of that business that his son was involved in. Now, we do know in some of those interactions, the Anthony Shots character, as well as Emily Ann, I think was the girl character that he was using, that both of those profiles make reference to my dad or my father on several occasions. But we can't sit here and say at all that Anthony Klein, Tony Klein, his father, participated in any of that. So that's a little. I'm not trying to dance around things here, but it's for some of this we have to deal in facts, and the facts are that nobody has charged Tony Klein with anything. He could be just a perfectly innocent, regular dude. Kagan Klein, not. No, we know at the very least he was tricking little girls into sending him disgusting stuff. And this is a predator that we need to be reminded of, that exists. And we not only need to be reminded, we need to remind our children. Everybody out there in the community needs to remind their children that these predators do exist, and they're incredibly dangerous. And I'll get into that a little bit more here in just a second. But this guy was not approaching girls on the playground, was not pulling up to them in his car and rolling down the window and asking for directions. No, he victimized your children by walking through your closed and locked doors of your homes via your children's phones and tablets. And that's how he struck up conversation with them. And then if that's not got you fully on guard, ready to start putting up fences. The other thing, I reviewed a lot. So all of the conversations that he had with these different girls that the state is charging him with, I was able to review these conversations. And here's the most terrifying part about it. Regularly in these conversations, he's not just, after he's totally duped the kid and they're kind of doing whatever he's requesting, now he's going, oh, how about your friends? Do you have any friends that I could talk to? Oh, do you have a younger sister that you could take some pictures of her and send them to me? And then, of course, he's sending them to other creeps. Now, with somebody like Kagan Klein, the reason why, I mean, of course, police honed in on him, and it's hard for us to say, Tim, exactly how much they really thought he could be the killer. We know that they interrogated him on more than one occasion with the questions that they thought he might be the killer or know the killer.
Yeah.
And but the thing here that needs to be pointed out that really struck me as incredibly odd with Kegan Kline, and still does not sit very well with me at all to this day, is that, look, he's not the first guy to catfish young girls or minors over a phone or computer, and he won't be the last. But what he was doing that was very different from what these what other situations these other predators typically do, they are looking for people. They don't care the location of the minor.
Mm-hmm.
Kegan Kline seemed to only be talking to minors that lived relatively close to where he lived.
Oh.
And I found that to be very strange. Like, why would you do that? Well, the only reason to do that that would make sense to me is that you want to have some actual physical access to these people.
Not just access, Nick, but to eventually meet up and maybe do something dastardly. Yeah.
You want to have the ability. So he's only communicating with girls within a small proximity of himself, and where a lot of times these online predators, you'll get a guy in Maine that would prefer to talk to somebody in Washington State or California or Texas, because the chances of it finding him and being the perpetrator of this online activity, he may think lessens that, and he has no real desire to ever meet up with them or kidnap them or any of that business.
Yep.
He just wants the videos and the images.
Yeah.
So different kind, and even a little more scarier version of a predator that we're already well aware of.
Yeah.
And I wonder, now that we've moved on from him, with him doing so much of that activity at a young age, I just wonder, he's not looking at, they ain't going to lock Kegan Kline up forever.
No.
He'll get a relatively short prison sentence.
Yeah.
If he gets one at all. And the problem with that is when they charged him, they initially charged him with like 30 some counts of this kind of behavior. And it's already been dropped down now that they've moved on from him and I believe that's what they did. I think they moved on from him as a suspect. And once they did, they dropped a bunch of those charges, because I think they thought, well, maybe we can figure something. We'll get, if all of this consequences hanging above his head, then maybe he'll tell us some information we need to know in this Delphi business. And they dropped a lot of those charges. Well, why? Because these cases are hard to prosecute, because they're pulling a lot of this activity from his devices. Yeah. They don't necessarily know who all the victims are that he was out there talking to. So we don't have a victim to sit there. You have the right to face your accuser.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why some of those charges were dropped against him. Some people had speculated that he was cooperating with police as far as the Delphi double murders went, and that's why the charges were dropped. No, that's not the case. And so different kind of predator, but still scary stuff.
Well, you bring something up interesting in the book, and that's this: that the son is kind of protecting the father throughout the entire prosecution. That he really is kind of keeping him shaded or guarded. But I'll bring this up to you, my friend. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He had to learn it from somewhere. And I'm convinced he learned it from Dad. And
that very well could be the case. And we know in other cases that is the case.
And and we know he's not 100%, guilt or 100% innocent in this whole thing. My thing is I really do think when the son goes away, the father's going to start to play. And I think police will follow up on him and keep tabs on him. He's not going to use the same moniker online. He's probably going to use something else, but they'll follow the IP addresses, because I don't think he's that brilliant. And I think you're going to see the father get put away as well.
Yeah. And we know that these homicides, Libby and Abby, were killed on a Monday. And the thing that made it even more difficult when you looked at somebody like Kegan and his father, well, Kegan doesn't work, and Tony is off his regular day off. One of them is a Monday. So these were people that were hard to account for on the day in question.
That's chilling. Just that coincidence alone was chilling.
Yes.
Yeah, very much so. Before we leave people today, I want to circle back to Richard Miller. Now, you're going to cover a lot of the new stuff, so I'm gonna leave that new stuff for people to go over to True Crime Garage and check out that show on the new stuff. But there's an article that came out on June 28th that was a little disturbing, and I want to get your thoughts on it just briefly, and then people can go to True Crime Garage and get the in-depth thoughts on it. And that's this. Richard Allen was in his jail cell, and it came out that he talked to his wife and basically admitted to her several times, and this is the quote, he admitted several times that he killed Abby and Libby. His wife reportedly abruptly ended the call at that point. And this is according to a Carroll County Sheriff's Department detective who wrote in a document that happened on April 3rd.
So
go ahead.
We will definitely see more of this if this thing goes to trial, and some people might be scratching their heads there, but if for those that are really dialed in and paying attention, I would believe that there would be some people out there that could see a way that this thing doesn't go to trial. Maybe if Richard Allen did confess to his wife, and that's what's being reported, and I don't question that, but we'll get into what I think is more interesting about that.
Sure.
It's not hard to believe that we might be a short leap away from him confessing to everybody, and therefore there would not be a trial. Now, the thing here is, though, the way that that's reported is that it was transcribed phone calls, so that they're recording his phone calls from his cell. He has a tablet that he's allowed to use to communicate with people, and that was taken from a transcription of a phone call that he had with his wife. What that report does not tell us, as well as the transcription, I'm assuming, one, that transcript was not released to the public. It was just the report of the detective saying, well, he confessed to his wife and then she hung up the phone. That's the way it sounds, right?
Right.
But we've seen plenty of cases where somebody has been interrogated by police and they confess to a crime that we later learned through DNA they did not commit. And so the reason why I'm not ready to throw a parade based off of that statement is we don't know the context in which he says to his wife that, or exactly how he says that to his wife. Was he being sarcastic? Did he say it out of frustration that, oh, everybody's saying I killed him? Well, guess what? I killed him. And he doesn't, and he didn't. And look, I'm not rushing to the front line to be in the defense of Richard Allen. I'm just saying, until we know exactly what it is, I don't want to sit and spin my tires too much on it, because it could have. If anybody that's familiar with the yogurt shop case down out of Austin, Texas, you want to hear a confession that sounds very hard to go back on. That one is very difficult. And I don't know exactly the rating of your show, so I hesitate to say.
You fire off. You can say whatever you want.
Well, in the Austin yogurt shop case, they arrested. At the time, there were only 3 of the 4 individuals left that police thought had killed 4 girls, raped and murdered 4 girls in the back of a yogurt shop and burnt the place down, or attempted to burn it down. And 2 of the guys that were interrogated confessed, and one of the guys confessed so much that it's on videotape. He's yelling at the officers saying, something to the effect of, I killed her, and I pulled out my penis and I raped her. And we're talking about children. Wow. Victims, and he's yelling that at the cops with a voice and a face that makes you believe he's ready to punch that cop right in the face. Jeez. And then what do we find out years later? DNA confirms that he did not do those things that he screamed at. So that's why I go, let's see what this actually means, right? Let's see what this statement actually means before we're ready to string some guy up in the middle of town square.
So I have to ask you then, Nick, because, okay, so at the scene, for our listeners here that aren't familiar with the case, there was a shell from an unspent shell from a 40 millimeter Sig Sauer, okay, next to the bodies, at which anything could have happened in that case. It could have been that he had to scare the girls. He might have cocked the gun. An unspent shell could have come from the gun in order to scare them, to make them think that maybe, he was loading up another round in the chamber. It could have been that one fell out by accident. Maybe he forgot he had one in the chamber, so he went to load up one in the chamber. But as you just mentioned, that the girls were killed with a sharp weapon, so maybe the gun was just used as a threat. But ballistics is tying that unspent shell to this Sig Sauer that was brought from his domain, his domicile. Mm-hmm. There's other evidence that they're tying as well, as you've mentioned, and we'll save that for True Crime Garage. There's some interesting things here besides just his supposed confession to his wife that tie him to this case. But I want to bring people again to the book and tell them to read this book, because there's some other players involved here that are peripheral players that probably aren't as good as Mr. Allen's, but as being a suspect here. But I want to ask you this sincerely. Do you think Richard Miller is the best suspect as far as being the killers of Libby and Abby?
Yes, I believe that Richard Allen is by far the best suspect.
I'm sorry, Richard Allen. Yeah.
Yeah, by far. Out of all the people mentioned in the book, and all the people that have been mentioned over the course of 6 years, I think that Richard Allen is by far the best suspect.
Now,
he has something that separates him from everyone else, and just the pure fact that he was there in that location at that time on that day. That is the thing, and that's Tim. That's why these side by sides and people submitting stuff to the police kind of aggravated me, because they don't realize that what they are doing, the speed bumps that they are putting in front of these investigators. When you go, oh, look at this guy, he looks and dresses exactly like Bridge Guy, and oh, I even heard him talk on Facebook too, or on YouTube, and listen to him. He sounds just like Bridge Guy. Better mail this in. Well, they mail it in. Good for you. I'm not gonna stomp on any concerned citizen, or you see something, say something. I'm not gonna bash anybody for doing that, but pump the brakes a little bit, because the key thing here is the killer had to be there at that time on that day. So if your guy that you're emailing police about, or the FBI about, lives in Hawaii, well, we immediately have a problem. Or if he lives, if he doesn't live in Delphi, Indiana, or Carroll County, Indiana, we immediately have a problem. Can you put that individual on the trails that day? And I would guess, we heard something like 40,000, 60,000 tips that had come in, and that was fairly early on in the case. So I don't know how many tips that they ultimately ended up receiving, but how many of those were people that could not physically have been there that day? I'm guessing a whole bunch of them.
The other thing that's reported in this article is that, and I have to ask you this question as well, because this makes me wonder a couple of different things, and I'll explain after I get done reading it. Mm-hmm. They say that he's lost an incredible amount of weight there at the Westville Correctional Facility. He's reportedly in a segregation unit for his own protection. He claims that the corrections officers there are calling him a kid killer, trying to determine whether he needs to be put on involuntary medication. At one point, they say that he allegedly had wet paper sent by his attorneys and ate it. That's the reason they're trying to figure out whether they need to move facilities with Mr. Allen. And whether he needs to be put on involuntary medication. Do you believe he is mentally breaking down? And is he breaking down from guilt? Or is he mentally breaking down from pressure? Is he breaking down from the pressure of finally all of this from outside pressure from guards, outside pressure from inmates, outside pressure from people just saying, hey, we know you're a kid killer, because that happens inside prisons.
Yeah. And so it's his defense team that has put forth the request to have him moved. And it's not necessarily the courts or the facility who's wondering, should we move this guy? It's the defense team saying, look, it's very difficult for his family to visit Richard Allen. It's very difficult for us, his defense team, to visit him in person because of not just he's in a segregation unit, which makes it more difficult to get to him even once you're at the facility. Mm-hmm. But the facility is not the closest one to where all of these other people live, the defense team and Richard Allen's family. So what they're saying is, we've got to travel a further distance than necessary than we would if he were housed elsewhere. And so, and I guess, every facility is different, but from the way I understand it, that the segregation portion of this facility makes it difficult for the defense team to believe that they have 100% closed door meetings with their client, that they're not being watched or listened to during these meetings, which we do not want that to happen. Look, is there a whole bunch of people out there with signs that feel bad and sympathize for Richard Allen? No. But at the same time, we don't want to muck up any of this trial that should happen, that's scheduled to happen. We want a clean trial.
Yeah.
And we don't want any reason to let a bad guy, if he did this, he's pure evil.
Yes.
We do not want him to get off on some kind of technicality. So let's play by the rules. And as far as him being called a kid killer and threatened by guards and other inmates and things of that nature, that actually came from another person that is being held there at that facility, that he wrote a letter saying this is what's happening. And that's not the first time he's wrote a letter like that in regard to somebody being housed at that facility. So could this other guy be making all this stuff up? Yes. Could it all be absolutely true? Yes. Could the truth be somewhere in between? Yes. It's difficult to really say. I would not applaud guards for harassing an inmate. And I'm not patting the inmates on the back that may be harassing an inmate either. But do I believe that it's terribly uncommon for these things to happen when somebody's charged with a double homicide of children that was probably sexually motivated? No, it's probably fairly common. And if that is the case, and if that is in fact happening, Richard Allen's probably he's probably become very paranoid in the environment that he currently is in. And I would expect that it'd be very difficult to sleep with both eyes closed in that type of environment. And of course, that's going to lead to weight loss. That's going to lead to his appearance changing over the course of several months. The other thing, too, is when you ask the facility, the warden is saying he is eating regularly. Now, that fluctuates depending on what's going on in his little world. But
sure.
That he's afforded all of the same privileges, I guess you would say, or amenities as all of the other people being stored in that facility, housed in that. I keep saying stored like it's an inventory in the back, the back stock room, being housed in this facility. But the one thing that's interesting, though, is Richard Allen has a privilege and amenity that the other people being housed there do not, and that is a tablet. He has the use of a tablet that is just to use, so that he can communicate, and he can even listen to music on it. And at some point, he broke this tablet. So, yeah, I don't. It's difficult to say, but here's the thing: if they really believe that he's being mistreated, the other right that Richard Allen has is the right to a speedy trial. And
True.
ain't nobody on that defense team saying, "Let's hurry up and take this thing to court." No,
Right.
they ain't saying that either.
Right.
They want to try to build a case or crack the state's case, and they're going to take their good old sweet time doing it. We will not see a trial if one ever happens until 2024. And I can't recall the exact date that they pushed it to at this point, off of memory, but I would wager, Franklin, that it gets pushed back one or two more times.
I'm trying to see if it's in this article. I had showed you the picture. I don't know if you saw it when I held it up. The picture of what Richard Allen looks like now. Did you see that when I held it up to you?
Yeah, so like the warden states that you can see there's like a stain or some kind of water or something on his shirt.
It was it's just more the general weight loss of what he looks like. To me it's they're going to feed you. So it's a matter of whether you choose to eat or not, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
and but the warden does point out, he has other shirts in his cell that he's choosing not to wear. So when you see a guy who looks disheveled, looks weight loss, and appears to be wearing dirty clothes, well, he had the option of wearing other clothes. Now, is he losing his mind? He very well could be. Is it a short drive to Crazy Town for somebody who kills two girls out on the trails in broad daylight? Probably. Who knows how, if he is guilty, who knows how sick and disturbed he was before he killed these two girls. A lot of times these types will fantasize about this kind of stuff for years even, and hide this from those closest to them. Very true.
I'm not seeing an actual date
I want to
here.
say, Tim, that they were saying maybe January of 2024, but what will happen is they're going to have a competency hearing at some point.
Yeah.
And people get confused about that. They're like, is he going to use the insanity defense? And no, they're just going to decide if he's competent to stand trial, and not looking at was he insane at the time that he committed the crimes, because he didn't walk into the police. He didn't kill the girls and then walk into the sheriff's department and say, "Oh, I did it. God told me to kill these kids and I would do it again, but lock me up before I do it." He didn't. He eluded police for almost 6 years. And
right.
So
right.
Just the very generic definition of insane at the time of a crime or insanity defense is that you do not know or understand or comprehend right from wrong, or that you do and you did the wrong thing based off of some mystical fantasy. But none of that is the case here. So it will not. I hope people don't misconstrue a competency hearing for an insanity defense.
Well, all this new stuff that's being reported to me just seems like it's being built up for that competency hearing. I mean, wetting paper and eating it, and the loss of weight and the pressure from inside the jail cell, to me all seems like the beginning of a competency defense. Doesn't seem like that to you?
What it seems like to me is I do not want to give too much credit, because I don't think that Richard Allen, and I'm basing this off of very little information.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that he's a brilliant individual. I don't think that he's smarter than the next guy.
Okay.
What I suspect here is that he's put himself in a situation that he is guilty. There's no way out for him. The curtain is now being peeled back, and those that know him best, and people that he may even love, if he does know what love is, if he can love the way the rest of us can, that he's fully exposed, that they now know who he is and how small of a person and how big of a monster he is, and that he's soulless, he's gutless, and he's just a horrible individual. And maybe he's making it easier on himself by portraying something that maybe his family and friends and people that he's known the longest could accept this a little differently if they think he's completely broke down and lost all of it. And, yeah, that's what I think I think he may be either attempting to orchestrate a way to save face a little bit with some of these people, or some of these acts are done out of anger, and we are misconstruing why he's doing what he's doing. And again, that's something that we went quite a bit more in depth to on True Crime Garage.
Right. And I'll encourage people to go over and listen to that. In fact, we'll put a link in the description of this show so you can go check that out and check out True Crime Garage and check out the full show of Nick and the Captain getting into it and getting into the new developments with Mr. Allen. Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And again, folks, there's a link in the description of this program to check out the book. I fully encourage you to check out the book because we've barely scratched the surface today as to what exactly the book, The Delphi Murders, is all about. The Delphi Murders, The Quest to Find the Man on the Bridge. It's by the host of True Crime Garage, who's been with us today, Nick Edwards and Brian Whitney. The book gets more into the ancillary players, the other suspects that are involved or may be involved, and also gets into the histories of the families of Abby and Libby. It also gets into the actual investigation itself and gives you a more well-rounded look at everything having to do with the Delphi murders. So, Nick, I want to thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Tom.
Go ahead. You had something else you wanted to add. I want you to go ahead and add that.
I wanted to point out that one thing that I tried to do with this book that I think is different from a lot of true crime books, actually most of them out there, is that, yes, this is a case where we have somebody who's been arrested and awaiting trial, but this book was written in a large portion of it was written in real time. So it will take you from the start to where we are now, or at least where we were when the book was published and released in April of this year. And so it's kind of walking hand in hand with me throughout the start of the case all the way through the arrest of Richard Allen. And I think that's very different because many times we're talking about true crime books that are written after the arrest or after a trial has concluded or before anybody's apprehended at all. And here with this book, you get a different storytelling where it's both. It's both because I'm delivering to you what I was experiencing or what I was speculating on at the time as the information was coming out. And so I wanted to tell the story in a very unique and different way. And I was very happy. I think we achieved that. So it's available in several different forms. Kindle, audiobook, which the audio version, I was very lucky. Kevin Pierce is a legend when it comes to narrating books in audio form. And so it was a huge, that just made me feel like $1 million when they told me Kevin Pierce was going to do the book, and to hear him read it, his performance is amazing. So if you're tuning in to Tim's Fantastic Show or True Crime Garage, that's because you're an audio person. Pick up the audio book, from Audible, but it's also available in hardback and paperback. All versions available on Amazon. You can just search The Delphi Murders, or you could search Nick Edwards, and it will come right up.
And I wouldn't be doing you a service if we didn't talk about the Porch Light Project real quick. Tell people real quick about it and how they can help out.
Porchlightonline.org if you want to learn more about Porchlight and what we do, the Porchlight Project. And there's easy and quick links there if you want to donate as well. But we're a Ohio nonprofit that assists families and law enforcement with cold case investigations. And there are many different ways that we can assist families and law enforcement, but one of the ways that we've been the most successful is with providing funding for DNA testing. And we actually worked with the Cuyahoga County and we were able to solve a homicide case that was over 30 years cold.
Oh, wow.
The murderer, actually, his name was not even in the case file, and it was a very extensive case file. The case, it didn't go unsolved due to a lack of effort by investigators, police, and detectives. It went unsolved because of something we touched on earlier. It was a stranger on stranger crime. There was nothing connecting the victim to the perpetrator other than his DNA that we were able to get tested and pay for that testing, and that led to an arrest. And so we were happy to close out a over 30-year-old cold case. We've also identified the oldest unidentified remains in Ohio. That was a case from a couple years back, and now we've had some good success recently with identifying unidentified Jane and John Does, and some of them murder victims. So what happens is, like we keep going back to, most of the time the person that killed the person is in their social circle. Well, when you have a murder victim and you don't know who they are, you have no clue who their social circle is. So in the case of Erie County Doe, Jane Doe, I'm sorry, we were able to identify her, and guess what? Police and detectives now have people to talk to because we know who she is and where she lived and all of that very necessary information. So that is an organization that is near and dear to my heart, and we do boots on the ground work, and we'll continue to do so. We did a case, very heartbreaking case, Nancy Eagleson. We raised money to have her exhumed. That case is from 1960. Wow. So very old cold case, and the exhumation, what that provided for law enforcement was we recovered a bullet from the casket. So now they have a bullet that they can test ballistically against a firearm should they find the right firearm, or they could eliminate firearms. She was abducted and killed with a gun. So we're doing good work, and I hope people will check out porchlightonline.org. We'll
have a link for that as well in the description of this program, so you can go donate for Porchlight Project as well. Nick, thank you so much for being with us today, my friend. Again, love the book, Delphi Murders. Want everybody to go out and get the book. Donate to Porchlight Project as well. And check out True Crime Garage for the latest on the Delphi Murders.
Hey, thanks, Tim, for having me. And thanks to everybody out there listening for putting up with me for the last hour. And I hope that you'll have me back sometime.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for being on. Folks, we're going to lighten things up a little bit. We're bringing in Mally Fox. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's that time you're all looking forward to. The time once again for us to stop being so serious and start getting into a little lighthearted humor. It's time once again for Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals. And it's time once again for us to bring in a co-host. Yes, we bring in the co-hostess with the mostest. It's Mally Fox. Hi, Mally.
Hello.
Hello. We should reiterate for everyone that although Bruiser is slowly working his way into Bruiser 2.0, it's going a little slower than he expected, but he'll be back soon. So.
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah, there's a little bit of pain involved with his type of hip replacement. So. He's trying to find a way to get comfortable because it's not exactly comfortable to sit for the amount of time that we do these recordings. I don't think people realize that. So, but he's working on it, and hopefully he'll be back soon. So, just keep your thoughts, your prayers, and your good energy going for Bruiser, and he'll be back sooner than you know. So there you go. Mm-hmm. Mally, we start off today's program right here in Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Get out.
Well, I can't because I have to read this. But other than that, I mean, I mean, I could turn the stories over to you and just leave.
Right. Me with my one good eye.
There you go, with your one good eye. We're used to hearing that Florida man does weird things. Mm-hmm. And it so happens that Minneapolis St. Paulites have to go to Florida to witness those weird things. But as it is, we happened to send one of our own down to Florida, and they came back, and it rubbed off on them, and they brought it back here to Minneapolis St. Paul. This just happened today as we're recording. We're recording on a Monday for Tuesday, and fresh off the press here, Mally. A man flees an arrest at Minneapolis St. Paul Airport by opening a plane door and running onto the airfield.
Oh, my gosh.
And, of course, he's flying in from Orlando, Florida.
Of course.
He learned something new by going to Florida, evidently. Authorities say a flight passenger with an outstanding warrant tried to evade arrest at Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport Sunday night by opening a plane's emergency exit door and running onto the airfield because he was so happy to be home, evidently. Yeah. The attempted escape occurred at 11:15 p.m. on a parked Sun Country Airlines flight from Orlando, according to an airport spokesperson. Police were waiting at the gate to arrest a 44-year-old New Brighton man. Well, that explains a lot right there. I mean,
stop. You're going to get hate mail.
If you're from the Twin Cities, you know why somebody from New Brighton just ran off the plane. While other passengers were leaving the plane, he opened an emergency exit door over a wing and ran. It turns out, by the way, that he was sitting in the emergency exit row.
Oh, okay.
So he just got up and boom, right out the door. It's true. Airport employees found the man inside an airline service food truck, Mal, at around 11:40 p.m. That's where he escaped to.
How did he know that they were waiting for him?
I think he just got paranoid.
Oh.
Yeah. And they notified authorities, by the way, when they found him in the airline service food truck. He was arrested and is being held at Hennepin County Jail. Police said the man was wanted for violating a restraining order and also had an active felony drug warrant in Wright County.
Oh.
But I think they probably didn't find that out until he did the stupid act of running off the plane.
Oh, see, now I misunderstood. I thought the authorities were waiting for him before he escaped. And that's why he escaped, because he knew they were there for him.
I don't think so. I think it was...
He just escaped for the hell of it, and then the authorities came.
Yeah.
Oh.
It says here he's wanted for violating a no-contact order and was taken into custody then. But he's got these other charges. Pardon me. There's another article from Fox 9 that quotes Sun Country, where they say we take these incidents very seriously, and the crew called airport police, who responded very quickly. This is after he bugged out the door, the emergency exit.
There has to be something in that water in Florida. I swear.
I don't know if maybe he saw security get on the plane as everybody was deplaning, and it freaked him out. Okay. Or maybe they got a passenger list and somebody was notified, or what exactly the story was there. But something freaked him out, and he got a little paranoid and went out the exit, the emergency exit. Just bizarre. I mean, if it's me, I take my chances and try and walk by, because you're not getting off that plane, Mel. You're just not. You know? Mm-hmm. I mean, if they know it's you, if they've got, if they've run the passenger list and they see you have a warrant, you're not getting off that plane.
Right.
I mean, if you do get off the plane and you get, if you go through the hall or that little temporary hall, and you get into the actual airport, there's going to be somebody waiting for you at the desk. Right. And the minute you get out of the hallway, they're gonna pull you aside, or they'll get you at baggage claim, or they'll get you, they'll get you wherever they're going to get you, but they're going to get you before you try to leave the airport. So I don't know what the guy's thinking. You know, I don't know. But I would think the chances that they're going to... It just doesn't make any sense. None of this makes any sense to me. I don't know why.
I wonder what kind of food truck he was hiding in.
It was the Sky Chef's food truck.
Oh.
Yeah. You know, the LSG Sky Chefs, the ones who fill up the plane with food.
Gotcha.
He just needed a place to hide. He bugged out and he started running on the tarmac and he said, I'm going to hide in there because it was probably empty from them filling up a plane full of food. It's just stupid.
I have the vision of, you know, when you watch those movies and they escape from like prison in like the laundromat truck to get out the gates.
Yes.
That's what that's what I envision with him in the food truck.
Yeah.
He's waiting to get out of the gates and then escape.
Even if they close up the food truck and drive back into the airport, where's he going to go then? They're going to open up the truck to fill it with more food.
He just didn't think this one through all the way.
I know. It's just stupid. It's stupid. We have a spate of stories here, Mel. I think I came up with the right term there, of really nice crimes by nice people or supposedly nice people.
Okay.
Turns out they're not, but they're nice crimes from nice countries by not so nice people.
Okay.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
Turns out that a Canadian farmer's thumbs up emoji leads to a $62,000 fine for undelivered flax.
What?
Yeah. You could be nice by messenger or nice by your message system on your phone. Just don't use your thumbs up emoji because it could be taken the wrong way. Like, go ahead and deliver that flax, and you don't mean it. Here's the story out of Ottawa. This took place at the beginning of July here. A Canadian farmer has been ordered to pay more than 82,000 Canadian dollars or 61,784 American dollars in damages over an emoji confusion that a Saskatchewan judge resolved by ruling that a thumbs up image is enough to accept contractual terms. Does that seem right?
Listen, all I know is the family bakery that I used to help out at, someone used to open up the direct messages.
Yep.
And they would accidentally do thumbs up, sometimes thumbs down, which we don't understand why, or the mean face.
Okay.
And the people assumed that they were agreeing to their order or that they were mad at them or that and this person had no idea. She always claimed that she didn't know she was doing it.
No. Oh, that's horrible.
So we had
so you had to
that
clarify.
Was fun.
You had to clarify what they meant. That's terrible. Chris Octor, the owner of a farming company in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, had sent a thumbs up emoji in response to a photograph of a flax buying contract sent to him by a grains buyer in 2021. Months later, when the time of delivery arrived, the buyer, which had been doing business with Octor for several years, did not receive the flax. This sounds horrible. That started a dispute that led to a far-flung search for the equivalent of the Rosetta Stone in cases from Israel, New York State, and some tribunals in Canada to unearth what a thumbs-up emoji means.
I just don't think that should be legal binding. A thumbs up.
It shouldn't be because it has a wide range of what it means.
Right.
According
just
to
like the eggplant.
That's
some people like vegetables.
Well, there has to be something attached to the eggplant in order for it to mean what you think it means. Now, according to the June court ruling that surfaced in local media this past week, the buyer, Southwest Terminal, argued that the emoji implied acceptance of contractual terms, while Octor said he used the thumbs up image only to indicate that he had received the contract, but not to indicate his agreement. I could see where the confusion lies between the two, right? I'm sure you can too. In a summary judgment littered with 24 instances of the emoji, Judge T.J. Keene said, I am satisfied on the balance of probabilities that Chris okayed or approved the contract just like he had done before, except this time he used a thumbs up emoji. In my opinion, the signature requirement was met by the thumbs up emoji originating from Chris and his unique cell phone, Keen said. Nice people doing stupid things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cost him $62,000.
Shoo.
Another nice Canadian doing not so nice things in a nice country of Japan. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay. We go to Japan, where Tosho Daiji Kondo, that's the temple, in Nara was defaced by a Canadian teen.
Oh.
In a not so nice way, although it might have been nice. I'll describe it to you, Mally. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
A Canadian teenager has been questioned by police in Japan after carving letters on a wooden pillar of an 8th century temple. It's a pretty old temple.
He's just an idiot.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's why it's dumb crime, stupid criminals.
It's like that British couple that did their initials in the Roman built. What was it? It was like some type of Roman.
Was it a
I don't know.
temple?
It was like, I don't know what it was. It was like, I can't remember what it was. It was a historic site, and they carved their initials into it.
Yep.
And now he can face jail time.
Oh, it's pretty good with this one. Mm-hmm. Police said that the 17-year-old boy carved Julian on a pillar at the Tosho Daiji Kondo Temple Complex in Nara, Japan. The boy was caught carving the pillar with his fingernail, Mally.
Oh.
By a Japanese tourist who alerted temple staff. The temple is a designated UNESCO World Heritage Site. After the incident, which occurred on July 7th, the boy was questioned on suspicion of violating the Cultural Properties Protection Law. The carving was made on the pillar of the temple's Golden Hall, which is a designated national treasure, police told Japanese newspaper the Mainichi. Police also told CNN that the boy said his actions did not intend to harm Japanese culture. Of course not. He's Canadian. He's polite. He's sorry. They added he is now with his parents who were with him when the vandalism occurred. They just weren't watching him very well. That's what was happening there. A monk at the temple told the newspaper that even though it may have been done without malice, it is still regrettable and sad. The temple is one of 8 sites that make up the historic monuments of the ancient Nara. According to UNESCO's website, the monuments, which include Buddhist temples and Shinto shrines, provide a vivid picture of life in the Japanese capital in the 8th century, a period of profound political and cultural change. Nara itself is around 28 miles south of Kyoto and was once the capital of Japan. It remains popular with tourists.
Oh.
Another nice country,
right,
being defiled by a stupid person from a nice country. We'll continue on. Another nice group of nice people from a nice place being defiled by a stupid teen from people who are trying to do nice things. Are you ready?
Yeah. That one was a little bit confusing.
I know. I'm trying to stay on the nice, naughty type deal.
Gotcha.
And I might be confusing you a little bit. A teen is accused of stealing multiple cookies from a farm stand in Wayne County.
Wayne County, like Michigan?
No.
Wayne County?
We're going back to Canada. We're going back to a nice country.
Okay.
That's got nice cookies, but bad teens. Teens are going rotten in Canada now. I don't know what the deal is, but yeah. I don't know what the deal is, man. The Wayne County Sheriff's Office reports the arrest of an Ontario teen following investigation into a larceny at Lamora Farms in Ontario. It's now larceny to steal cookies, Mally. Yeah. 18-year-old Hayden Fisher was arrested for petty larceny after a investigation that began last month. The teen was charged with petty larceny after allegedly stealing baked goods from the farm stand twice in the same day. It was bad when it was once. It's horrible when it's twice.
Well, was it one of those attended farm stands that are along the road where they're just like, oh, It's basically an honor system.
Yeah, like leave a dollar, take a pastry type
Yeah.
deal. It might be. I think so. He was arraigned and will answer the charge at a later date. That would be the honor system when it comes to being arraigned. Leave a charge, leave a dollar for your charges, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how they do it in Canada. I think that's probably how they do it. Here's another nice country big prick assistant mayor
Okay.
doing really bad things. The Helsinki deputy mayor is caught spray painting graffiti in a railway tunnel. We're going to Finland, Mally.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to try to hit this name, but again, I'm not big on Finnish. That's what she said. I have one of these for you. There you go. Paavo Aranmaki, I believe it is. One of the 4 deputy mayors of Helsinki. There's 4 of them?
Huh.
How much is there to do in Helsinki? They have 4 deputy mayors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is facing possible legal action and calls for him to pay compensation for damages and to resign. For painting a little graffiti on the walls there. The deputy mayor of Finland's capital is facing possible legal action and calls for him to pay compensation for damages and to resign after he was caught red-handed spray painting graffiti in a railway tunnel last weekend. The Finnish Transport Infrastructure Agency told public broadcaster YLE on Wednesday that cleaning up graffiti illegally painted by Paavo Aranmaki, one of the 4 deputy mayors of Helsinki, cost the city around 3,500 euros or $3,830.
It's a lot of paint
Yeah, it is. What the
to
heck was he?
cover up his stuff.
What the heck was he painting?
Yeah.
Here's what's more embarrassing, Mally. Aranmaki's a 46-year-old man who's out there painting this railway tunnel. So Aranmaki, who's 46, and a friend were caught by guards in a rail tunnel in eastern Helsinki on Friday just after they had completed graffiti, which Finnish street art experts said looked partly inspired by works seen in New York City in the 1970s. So it wasn't even really original.
Right.
Yeah. Finland's largest newspaper, Helsingin Sanomat, published a photo of the large-scale graffiti in a tweet. Gosh, I gotta see this.
Because I thought you were going to say like he was defacing like someone's, maybe like an opposing, candidate, like their, oh.
I just showed it to Mally. That's the reaction you got, folks.
Okay. Actually, it's not bad.
It's not terrible, but it's not
But he's
great.
46. Why is he doing this?
Is that worth $3,800, Mel?
No.
No, it's not. He's 46, and that's the best he could do. It looks like, well, it just looks like regular New York City graffiti. It's not even good New York graffiti.
Oh. It's not like that. What's that guy's name? Is it Banks or something like that?
Yeah, Banksy is what.
Yeah, Banksy.
But Banksy does better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Helsingin Sanomat published a photo of that large-scale graffiti in a tweet. In a Facebook posting on Sunday, Aranmaki, who is known as a strong supporter of street art and as a creator of graffiti in his youth, he probably should have stuck to politics, apologized for his stupid fooling around, that's in quotes. He's a former lawmaker and chairman of the Left Alliance and served as a minister for culture and sports in 2011 through 2014. Police are investigating the act as vandalism and interference with rail traffic, which had to be temporarily halted because of the incident. The rail tunnel is used by cargo trains running to and from a Helsinki port. It wasn't immediately clear whether Aranmaki would face legal charges. I have committed a crime and bear full responsibility for it, Aranmaki told YLE on Monday, but has refused to resign from his post in the Helsinki City Council, where his Left Alliance party is backing him. So the government's behind his graffiti. Interesting. The case has caused uproar and debate among Helsinki citizens and social media, with a majority condemning, but some also fiercely supporting the actions of the deputy mayor, who's in charge of culture and leisure affairs in Helsinki, which is a city of... How many people do you think are in Helsinki, Mally? I want you to take a guess at this.
I'm going to go with 75,000.
A little higher.
Oh, 1 million.
A little lower.
Oh, Jesus. 500,000.
You're close. 650,000 people in Helsinki.
Okay.
Yeah. The Finnish capital spends an estimated, oh my God, $710,000 annually to remove illegal graffiti throughout the city. That's a lot for Helsinki, Finland.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot of graffiti here in Detroit, but it's pretty cool. And I'd rather look at cool graffiti than gang signs and stuff like that.
Right. And you know what? In Detroit, they kind of do graffiti right. I mean, I know that sounds like a KFC commercial, but I mean, Detroit, they don't do it well in Minneapolis. I'll tell you that much. We don't have good graffiti, but New York, Chicago, LA, Detroit, I mean, those areas have great graffiti and artistic graffiti.
Yes.
And I mean, you don't necessarily have to clean it up, because the minute you do, you've got other gangs coming in and tagging it, and it doesn't look as good. But when you have street artists out there actually doing really good graffiti, well, you leave it up.
Right.
You know? But $710,000 annually to remove illegal graffiti throughout the city, and is currently seeking to establish additional sanctioned sites for street art. Now, that's fine if you want to start a street art program for artists in Helsinki, and you have specific areas of the city, but I don't know. Today, Mel, on Tuesday is 7-Eleven. It's July 11th. It's also 7-Eleven Day. And at most
slushy 7-Eleven?
There you go. At most 7-Elevens, they're giving away free slushies, free Slurpees, because there's Slurpees at 7-Eleven, or they're giving away free Big Gulps.
Okay.
Depending on the 7-Eleven near you. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, Mel, but 7-Eleven has bought a lot of the Speedway locations in the Midwest, including here in Minnesota.
I knew that, actually. For some odd reason, I did know that.
So even if you go to your local Speedway, you might be able to get something free today. So check that out if you're in your local area where there's a 7-Eleven. Now, we got a story today on Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals that has to do with 7-Eleven.
Okay.
On 7-Eleven Day. Turns out that a 7-Eleven clerk is busted for Big Gulp battery.
What?
Yeah. I bet you didn't know this, Mel, but when you throw a beverage at someone, it's a crime.
Yes, I knew that.
Well, a patron was struck in the head by a drink thrown by a 7-Eleven worker. Well, I'll tell you the details here. This happened back on July 5th. The Big Gulp was on the other foot in Florida, of course, on Sunday night, where a 7-Eleven worker was arrested for striking a female customer in the head with a large cup of lemonade. Oh, no. Cops allege that clerk, 35-year-old Miles Taz Jenkins, that's right, his middle name is Taz. Yeah. Which should tell you everything you need to know there, Mel. Got frustrated with a customer overpayment and threw a Big Gulp filled with lemonade at the woman, because that's mature. The incident was witnessed by 3 other customers, according to a criminal complaint, and Jenkins reportedly made spontaneous statements admitting to striking victim Tina Warren with the drink. At that point, you go refill it, Mally?
Well, it's kind of a waste, so you might as well.
Yeah, I would think so. Jenkins was charged with felony battery and booked into the county jail. Jenkins, who was released from custody this week, gave his address as a Clearwater motel.
What did the woman do that pissed him off so much?
I think we're about to find out. The alleged battery is being charged as a felony due to Jenkins having a prior conviction for sexual battery on a young girl, a crime for which he served several years in custody. So he was getting a break by working at 7-Eleven. Here's the perp in question. It doesn't say what she did. He got frustrated with the customer overpayment on the Big Gulp. That's all she did.
So she didn't want to pay like the full amount, or
I guess, or she was. I hate to say this, she was dickering over the price. Maybe she wanted to pay 59 cents and he wanted $1.09. That's your boy right there.
Oh,
yeah.
He looks creepy.
Winner, chicken dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. He kind of looks like the lead singer of Disturbed. Just saying.
We've got a guy at our 7-Eleven here in town that looks like Post Malone.
Really?
Yeah.
That'd be kind of fun.
He's got like the facial tattoos and everything. He's really nice.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Well, you go see Post Malone today for a free Slurpee.
There we go.
Maybe he'll put a little something in it for you. Just saying. Never know. That'd be kind of a side Benny. We go back to Florida, Mally, where a Florida sheriff's employee. This is kind of a weird story.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything funny about it, but it's kind of weird. And disturbing. I'll put it that way, too. A Florida sheriff's employee said he was shot while two black men carjacked him and later admitted he shot himself while playing with his gun.
Oh, my gosh.
Takes all kinds, Mel. A man who was employed as a telecommunicator with the Hernando County Sheriff's Office in Florida was fired after he faked a story about getting shot while two black men carjacked him. But it turns out his gunshot wound was self-inflicted. 21-year-old, figures, young and dumb. 21-year-old Dakota Wood has been charged with tampering with or fabricating physical evidence, false reports of commission of crimes, and discharging a firearm in public or residential property. Wood's troubles began when police responded to a call about an attempted carjacking and shooting. When they arrived on the scene, they found Wood suffering from a gunshot wound to his leg. He probably had it coming. Wood initially told police that he was the victim of an attempted carjacking. Wood said the men displayed a firearm and made a threat to kill him before shooting him in the thigh. This according to a press release. Wood said the shooter collected the shell casing prior to fleeing the area on foot. That's a little too convenient, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. After being shot, Wood said he obtained his personal firearm and fired approximately 5 rounds in self-defense. Wood further advised he believed he hit one of the suspects several times, which you would think there would be blood somewhere if he did, right? Mm-hmm. Following the shooting, Wood advised he relocated from the park to the intersection of Cortez Boulevard and Shoreline Boulevard to create a safe distance from the suspects. Wood also told police that the suspects were black. But while being interviewed at the hospital, Wood confessed that he lied and was instead at the park because he was having relationship troubles with his girlfriend and was playing with his gun when he accidentally shot himself. I think a lot of guys have done that. They're thinking about their girlfriend playing with their gun and it accidentally goes off.
That guy just needs a fidget spinner.
He really does. He added that he invented the carjacking story because he didn't want to get in trouble.
I think he'd be in less trouble if he just was honest from the get-go.
Yeah. You know what? I had my service piece with me and I screwed up and shot myself. Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's probably not the first and won't be the last.
That's right. These types of situations are relatively rare, unfortunate, and unpleasant, Hernando County Sheriff Al Nienhuis, I believe it is, said in the press release. My administration, however, has a very public reputation of holding my people accountable for their actions. The public can be confident that when an employee does something of this nature, they will forfeit their ability to be associated with the Hernando County Sheriff's Office. That's probably for the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Well, from one gun incident to another, we go from a cop that accidentally shoots himself to the leg to a tycoon who pulled a shotgun on an Amazon driver. we have one Amazon driver here in our neighborhood who drives a little fast, and we had a neighbor who flaked out. Now, by a little fast, I mean maybe going 32 and a 30 instead of 30 and a 30.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he was trying to cut corners and get back on time.
Right.
And we had a neighbor who absolutely lost his shit, Mally. I mean, he ran behind this guy's van and threw a beer at it at 9 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We went a little Florida ourselves the other day here in Minnesota. It was quite the, as I'm sitting sipping my coffee and feeding Wicket, I got to witness quite the event the other day.
We have people that speed down our street because they're bypassing the lights on the next street over.
Yeah.
And once in a while, we'll yell to slow down because we have little kids on our street.
Right.
So one day, this guy and girl just go speeding down our street. And Derek yells, "Slow down." And the girl goes, "F you." And Derek's like, "Real original."
Well, see, if you're speeding
That's
excessively.
Michigan for you.
Right. If you're speeding excessively, he's completely in the right.
Oh, yeah.
And any of us around here would do that. But the Amazon guy's going 32 and a 30. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not,
That's nothing.
No, it's nothing. But this guy was kind of wound up about something. I don't know. Maybe he got turned down the night before from the old lady or whatever it was.
Or they lost his package.
Right. Or they lost his package, whatever it was. And then he chucked a beer.
Yeah.
And it was a beer, folks. It wasn't, it wasn't a soda. It was a beer at 9 a.m. So you're trying to defend the kids, but you're chucking a beer at 9 a.m. at the Amazon driver. Who, by the way, hit the brakes and got out of his van.
Oh,
at
he
that
did?
point and yelled, "What the are you doing?" Which made for really great neighborhood drama at 9 a.m. Let me tell you. Even the chipmunk was interested. It was that good. But it's we all look out for each other in the neighborhood. We all look out, especially at summertime when the kids are outside and they're playing.
Right.
We're looking out for them too. So if the guy was excessive, we all would have yelled at him.
Right.
But this guy was just wound a little too tight. And one of the neighbors even came up to that neighbor and kind of put his arms around him and said, "Hey, buddy, you need to calm it down a little bit. Just bring it down a notch because that was a little excessive."
Was it the day after July 4th? So like he was still hungover?
No, this was actually beginning of June.
Oh.
This was right as school was getting out. So, I mean, some of the kids were still in school. So I don't know what his issue is. I think he was like a dog without a bone. He was. Yeah. Yeah. He was chasing everything. So I don't know. Just like you said, I think he had a thing against Amazon drivers. Yeah. It was just bizarre. But chucking a beer. I mean, find something good to throw, not a beer.
Right.
There's better things to throw. This guy, however, this multi-millionaire media executive, Mally, had something better to throw at the Amazon driver. It happened to be some buckshot. Just saying. Yeah. A tycoon pulled a shotgun on an Amazon driver. He's 70 years old.
Wait, the driver or the tycoon?
The tycoon is 70 years old and brandished a weapon outside a Pennsylvania mansion. This media executive was arrested for pointing a short-barreled shotgun at a woman attempting to deliver an Amazon package to a sprawling Pennsylvania mansion. Okay, that's a little out of control.
Yeah, just a tiny bit.
Yeah. According to investigators, the 30-year-old victim told cops that she arrived at the 72-acre estate on July 1st, to deliver an Amazon package to the resident of 70-year-old Stephen Saslow. The woman told police that Saslow granted her access to his property by means of opening the security gate to the sprawling property. So what's the problem?
Right.
Which includes a 14,000 square foot home and a large heated indoor pool with a retractable roof. Located near the Pocono Mountains, the Saslow estate was put on the market last year for $3.5 million. Pretty cheap, but it's Pennsylvania.
Right.
As detailed in a Pennsylvania State Police report, the victim said that she had parked her own Dodge Caravan in front of the residence in order to deliver said package when Saslow unexpectedly brandished a short-barrel shotgun, black in color, with his left hand and pointed it at her person. The woman told cops that while at gunpoint, she raised her hands, claiming she was from Amazon, all while still seated inside the vehicle. Additionally, the woman said that her 2 children were seated in the rear portion of the vehicle, Mally, during the midst of this incident.
Oh.
Oh, my. Following Saslow retrieving said package from the victim via his opposing hand, the victim stated that he pointed the firearm at her once again and told her to vacate the premises, to which she complied, according to police. Whoa.
Does he not know that Amazon also has those the drivers that drive their own personal cars?
Yeah, contractors.
Yeah.
I maybe
or maybe
not.
He's senile.
I'm thinking there's something wrong here, yeah. Pennsylvania troopers arrested Saslow on last Saturday on a reckless endangerment charge. While Saslow is not named in the report, a police spokesperson confirmed to The Smoking Gun that Saslow was the arrestee in the misdemeanor case. Saslow is a veteran media industry figure whose career included ad sales and the creation of several media firms. Most recently, Saslow purchased and later shuttered newspapers in Oregon, including Medford's Mail Tribune, which closed earlier this year. In addition to his Henryville, Pennsylvania spread, Saslow last year paid $3.8 million for a lakefront home in Florida. There's a shock. Florida man, he owns a gun. And one of his firms owns a twin-engine beach airplane that seats 6. On his Facebook page, Saslow recommends a Porsche dealer near his Pennsylvania residence. And evidently, he didn't hold that guy up either to get a delivery of his Porsche. Who knew? I'll show you a picture of the guy here. He looks happier here than he did when he was holding up the Amazon driver.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He looks younger than 70. He must color his hair.
I think he does, yeah. I think he's probably got a little Just for Men working for him. That's for sure. We go from shooting to stabbing, Mally. I guess that's how we work on this program. A CVS worker stabs to death a man who tried to shoplift in New York City. This story comes to us from Margot. Margot loaded us up this week with stories.
Oh, that's nice of her.
Yeah, that was nice of her. We go to New York, where a CVS worker in New York City stabbed to death a man who tried to shoplift from the store. Maybe a little bit of an overreaction, just a tiny bit. The incident happened at the CVS pharmacy located just north of Times Square at 1619 Broadway around 12:30 a.m. on Thursday. The CVS worker allegedly stabbed a 50-year-old man in the torso.
Ooh.
Ow. That's the slow way to die, by the way, folks. The man was pronounced dead at the hospital.
Oh.
Yeah. Scotty, I believe this is Eno, a 46-year-old Brooklyn resident, was arrested and charged with murder and criminal possession of a weapon after the stabbing, police said. A CVS spokesperson said they are cooperating with police with their investigation into the incident, which just goes to show you not everybody gets away with shoplifting at CVS.
Yeah.
I think people thought it was an easy target. It's not. That's going to lead us into a long string of robbery stories, Mally. 2 of which I'm going to question, where were you when this happened?
Okay. Why?
Our first story has to do with a suspect wearing a onesie and smashing wine bottles and chasing an employee through a store. We go to Columbus, Ohio, not that far away from where you're at, where police in Ohio said a customer chased an employee around a store after smashing 2 bottles of wine on the floor, caught on camera. You weren't testing wine in Columbus, Ohio, were you?
No, I was not.
Okay. The Columbus Division of Police said the incident occurred Wednesday afternoon at a store in Columbus. Police did not provide the name of the retail location. Surveillance footage from the store shows a suspect dressed in what appeared to be a ladybug outfit, causing chaos. The ladybug wine stealer. The suspect became irate and threatened to hit the employee with a bottle of wine, police said in a news release. The suspect smashed 2 bottles of wine on the floor at the feet of the employee and then chased him around the store. Probably because the vintage wasn't good enough, is my guess. I'm just speculating. I don't know. The suspect threw a bottle of wine at the employee, attempting to strike him, and it smashed to the floor at his feet. Just a bad aim, I guess. Yeah. Police said the suspect left the scene before officers arrived. The second story, Mally, I'm thinking is probably, it had to be you.
Okay.
Another wine store owner, by the way, says...
What, you think I'm angry? I'm an angry drunk or something?
No. I just think you're trying to get your hands on some good wine. A wine store owner says a thief drilled a hole in his roof, descended by a rope, and stole bottles worth $600,000. It was like something out of Ocean's 11, the store manager said. This is where I really see you. I think this was probably you. I think. Here's the details. A thief broke into the wine store in Los Angeles by drilling a hole in the roof. They then used rope to descend into the wine cellar, making off with expensive bottles. Around $600,000 worth of wine and liquor was stolen, according to the store's owner. It was involved now.
It's like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible.
Right? And
you're lowered down, watching out for the
I think you're a fan of those movies, aren't you?
I am, actually.
See? The new one's coming out soon. You might have a few more ways to get into that wine store. Just saying. But they did. They descended into the cellar using rope and making off with those expensive bottles. Surveillance footage from Lincoln Fine Wines, which is located in Los Angeles' Venice neighborhood, captures the start of the break-in that began around midnight last Friday. Footage shared by the wine store on Instagram shows a masked individual, that's how Mally would do it, wearing a black hoodie, which she's got plenty of those from investigating.
Yes, I do.
A red baseball cap and red gloves because she's fashionable. Climbing on storage containers to get access to the roof. The person then cut through the ceiling into the wine cellar, leaving behind a 5 by 3 foot hole. Before lowering themselves into the cellar, that according to owner Nazmul Haq, he told that to the Los Angeles Times. The burglary lasted approximately 4 hours, probably because Mally needed to stop and sample. Just saying. With the thief looting some of the most expensive bottles while bypassing more accessible bottles like Dom Perignon champagne. Now, Mal, why do we pass up the Dom Perignon?
You can buy that anywhere.
See? The thief tripped a sensor at about 4 a.m., alerting the store owner, who said he turned up at the store 30 minutes later to see shattered glass, empty shelves, and some abandoned crates. More than 600 bottles in total were stolen. Wow. How did you get all those out of there?
Deep pockets.
That's right. The owner told the LA Times that approximately 60% of his high-end stock was stolen, with the total loss amounting to about $600,000. The store's manager, Nick Martinell, told CNN that many of the bottles were irreplaceable. Now, see, high-end taste. That sounds familiar. The theft was movie-like, the manager said, telling CNN it was like something out of Ocean's 11. We just couldn't believe it. Hawk also expressed disbelief. It's very hard for me to digest. He told CNN, all my hard work snatched within a couple of hours. The incident's being investigated by LA police. Lincoln Fine Wines and the LAPD did not immediately respond to insiders' request for comment because they're still trying to figure out how Mally did it.
That's going to be a fancy cocktail party.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
See? What do you serve with all that wine?
Caviar. I hate caviar. Ugh.
Yeah, no.
Nasty.
Yeah. No, I would think it would be something more like a dinner party.
Oh, so I would say cheese.
Oh, very nice to start, or do you have like a
cheese and bread and? Now you're making me hungry.
I'm sorry. Well, after you get all loaded up there, Mal, on all that wine. So instead of bites of caviar with your wine, Mally, how about a bite out of a jewelry store employee? It's not as salty as caviar, but they're salty nonetheless.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
My mind just went somewhere.
I know. Oh boy, I didn't mean it like that. Well, you know what I mean. A suspect bites an employee during a robbery at a jewelry store inside a Fresno mall. It's wine and jewelry. I mean, it almost sounds like you're making the rounds here, Mel.
Yeah.
Fresno,
wine,
LA.
Diamonds.
Yeah, I mean, it's practically a spree here. We go to Fresno, California, where a suspect managed to get away with expensive jewelry after biting an employee at a store inside a Fresno mall on Thursday night. The robbery happened around 7 p.m. at Devon's Jewelers inside the Fashion Fair Mall near First Street and Shaw Avenue. Fresno police say a suspect was trying to leave the store with stolen jewelry before being stopped by an employee. Now, Mallie, a scenario for you. Mm-hmm. You're working at Devon's Jewelers.
Okay.
You see somebody grab some expensive jewelry.
Right.
Okay, now, is your job really on the line if you don't stop this person?
Well, I thought nowadays it's not. Like, you're supposed to let them go.
Right. That's what I thought. You don't necessarily have to, put yourself in harm's way.
Right. But my feistiness, though, if it's my own business and I own the place, I'm probably going to go after them.
You would think, yeah. Although, isn't there insurance policies set up so that, if you do lose something like that, you're reimbursed?
Well, yes, but there's still that you just want to punch them.
Yeah. The adrenaline's
you know what
flowing.
I mean? Like, don't take my stuff.
Yeah, the adrenaline's flowing. You want to get this stuff back, right? Right. So this employee steps in the way and goes, "Hey, you Mama Luke, I'm gonna take that away from you," or however you handle it. I don't know. So during the confrontation, officials say the suspect hit the employee twice before managing to escape the store with the jewelry. So trying to recover it probably didn't pay off. The store's employee suffered minor injuries. Officers are still working to find the suspect. So in the end, the suspect did get away with the jewelry.
But I feel like lately there have been more thefts like that because they know that the rule basically is let them go, do not, pursue them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I feel like there's more and more cases of, people ripping off these high-end places and, normal places as well. But because no one's going to stop them.
Right. Right.
You see the security guards and they're just kind of standing there.
Well, that's
letting
why
them go by.
That's why even up until 6 months to a year ago, people were doing these flash mobs where they would run into like Best Buy and they would start ripping TVs off left and right. You'd have 15 people go into a Best Buy. They'd all grab a TV and run out. What's loss prevention going to do?
Right.
They can't stop everybody. Mm-hmm. And that's what brought that type of behavior on. But you don't see it as much anymore as you used to because they started figuring out how to get police on the scene to help with that sort of thing. So that's that and that's that. I have an interesting story here for you, Mallie.
Okay.
You know how when you go to a state and you have the tourism board right there at the airport?
Yeah.
And they have like little samples of the state there. Maybe they have certain foods for you to try, or, somebody has a plate or a platter of food, especially when you go to foreign countries. It'll be like, oh, here, try the local fare. Oh, here's a little toy or a little something to remember us by, or a little sample of the local fare. Here's a seashell. Here's a little vial of sand. Here's a little whatever to remember us by. That type of deal.
I gotta start paying attention because I don't remember that.
You don't remember those things? Okay.
With like food and stuff? No.
Yeah, little welcome centers. You ever see those?
I know welcome centers, but I didn't know they offered you food.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes when you go to foreign countries or sometimes, but you have, like here in the States, you have welcome centers, right? In states. Okay. Well, Florida's kicking it up a notch, Mallie.
Okay.
At their Florida centers, or their welcome centers in Florida. They want you to get the Floridian experience.
All right.
As it turns out, Florida is now adding to their welcome centers mobile meth labs.
Are you serious?
Well, at one Florida welcome center,
I'm like, what?
somebody added a mobile meth lab.
Oh.
So that you too could get the riding the snake experience. We go to Nassau County, Florida, Mally, where the Florida Highway Patrol busted and arrested 2 people who thought maybe people would like to try a little bit of meth when they came to Florida. They arrested 2 people for trafficking and manufacturing methamphetamine near a Florida welcome center.
Because at first I thought you meant what is it called with that fake stuff that when people are trying to get off of like heroin and meth, they take something else?
Oh, it's either tramadol or methadone.
Yeah. So that's what I thought you were saying, was that they were offering that at the welcome centers. That's why I was like, are you serious? What?
Oh, no, this is a real thing. Yeah, no, the real stuff. Yeah. They're, if you want to get them hooked on the way into the state.
That's true.
And then they can find it wherever they want to find it. But you got them hooked first. So then on their way back out, they'll come see you again. Right? I guess. On Thursday, the Florida Highway Patrol conducted a traffic stop on a vehicle suspected of having an illegal window tint. That's how they get you. Mm-hmm. Right. The vehicle was stopped on I-95 southbound near the Florida Welcome Center. At the time of the stop, Florida Highway Patrol says the driver, a 42-year-old female and a 41-year-old male passenger, were on the way to Apopka, Florida from Charleston, South Carolina. Florida Highway Patrol says during the investigation, the trooper noticed that both individuals displayed numerous visual and behavioral indicators of the illegal use of narcotics. Upon requesting consent to search the vehicle, the trooper located liquid and crystal methamphetamine along with the materials used to make both. The chemicals used to make methamphetamine are hazardous, flammable, and pose various health risks to anyone inhaling or ingesting it. Can you imagine driving hundreds of miles with that in your car?
Ugh.
And with the windows closed? Ugh. That would be horrible. Mm-hmm. According to Florida Highway Patrol, methamphetamine can also cause severe burns if they come in contact with the skin. Florida Highway Patrol says both suspects were transported to the Nassau County Jail and will be charged with trafficking, possession, and manufacturing of methamphetamine. By the way, they were also giving away free lizards. Yeah, so that was part of the whole welcome to Florida thing. Just a little.
I'll just take a T-shirt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, T-shirts are safe.
T-shirts are fine. Yeah. Final 2 stories today on Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals, Mally, are not safe for work. So if you have kids listening, why you have kids listening to Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Get them out of the room. If you're listening at work, probably put in your earbuds or turn down your listening device, because we're about to get a little bit on the risque side in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Believe it or not, NBC News published this next story.
Okay.
There's a foot fondler on the loose in the Lake Tahoe area, Mally. I always question people who want to fondle your feet. I mean,
I bet you can make a lot of money, though.
You think?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, my podiatrist does. I mean, he wants to see my Charcot.
Yeah, but like feet fetish. I hear, pictures of your feet. You can doing stuff with your feet.
Women can make a lot of money at that.
I know. Yeah. I got to start having less of a moral standard.
Right? You can
make a lot with some of this stuff.
You can make a lot of money. Just saying.
Yeah. Wear a pair of socks around and then just put them in the mail.
Yeah. For like a week and put them in the mail and make yourself a couple thousand. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of freaky guys out there. Mm-hmm. Just saying. Hey, meanwhile, we're really making some people excited out there. A foot fondler's on the loose in the Lake Tahoe area. 2 women staying at a resort in State Line, Nevada, reported intrusions on their rooms on Sunday and Monday morning, according to the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. People in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, are being cautioned to secure their residences as a foot fondling intruder has been making their way around the area, Mally.
So are they like asleep and some guy's massaging their feet or what?
Oh, we're getting there.
Okay.
Yeah, don't shoot your load before we get there, Mally. It's a slow build, Mal.
Oh.
The woman woke up to the intruder fondling their feet, the sheriff's office said.
Oh.
Yeah, even your puppy agrees.
Yeah, sorry, that's Clarabelle.
No, that's okay. Clarabelle, you preach. In both incidents, the women were staying on ground floor rooms when the intruder is believed to have gained entry through unsecured exterior screen doors. Sounds like a high buck place, Mally.
Yeah.
Yeah. A description of the suspect was not released, probably because you're so freaked out that your feet are being touched that you're not focusing on the face, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Douglas County Sheriff's Office said it was actively investigating the incident and asked members of the public to submit tips if they have any leads. Well, his fingers were touching my feet, and I just kept swinging. I mean, what tip do you want?
Yeah. Note to self, do not have a room on the first floor.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In the meantime, residents and guests staying in the Lake Tahoe area are reminded to secure all exterior doors to their homes and rented rooms, the sheriff's office went on to say. Beautiful. I've always wondered to myself when I read a story like this about foot fondlers, what they would think of my Charcot foot, because it is not the best looking foot in the world.
Oh.
Because, you know, you've got an arch, right, in your foot. Yep. I've got a bowl. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the bone where your arch is juts outward. So I wonder if is that like a foot fondler's worst nightmare?
I like how you're asking me.
I don't know. I don't know. Because I would think for a foot fondler, that would be, that'd either be like, I'm trying to think of how to put this. It would either be the weirdest, sexiest thing ever, like finding a unicorn, or it would be like the most grotesque elephant man thing ever, and you'd probably watch him throw up. You know?
Yeah, I can see that one extreme or the other. There's not there's not an in between.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. If there's any foot fondlers out there, email me, tim@darknessradio.com.
We're going to get a bunch of anonymous.
Yeah, I don't care if it's anonymous. You send it through an anonymous email source. I don't care. I'm just curious. I don't know. Yeah, I would think it would be grotesque. I would think you would be repulsed and feel like you want to lose your breakfast. And finally, got to think, I believe this was Margot who sent this in. And by the way, Margot, this is freaky deaky of the highest caliber. Thank you. A guy who gave his girlfriend lingerie-clad lap dances faces 5 years in jail. I want you to dissect that for a moment, Mally, before I move on.
Okay, so the guy's wearing lingerie and he gave a lap dance?
Yes, ma'am.
Is he in like a southern state where they have those weird laws from like 1800s that make it illegal for stuff? Because I'm trying to think why it would be illegal for him to give a lap dance in lingerie.
No, this happened in Bangkok, Thailand.
Oh.
Yeah. Let's read it and find out, shall we? Life streamer Ice Poseidon has been told he can't leave Thailand until he faces a judge in 2024.
Wow.
After offending public decency with a bizarre lingerie-clad lap dance. This is why we say it's not safe for work. Here's the story, Mally. Once one of the most popular YouTube live streamers in the world, Ice Poseidon is facing jail after running into trouble with Thai police by performing a lingerie-clad lap dance for his girlfriend in a Bangkok restaurant. The streamer, whose real name is Paul Denino, has had multiple run-ins with law enforcement due to his insistence on live streaming everything he does, leading his fans to call in fake bomb threats and active shooter reports everywhere he goes. Oh, that's got to be convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah. His latest escapade was triggered when he started dancing in front of his girlfriend, Kimberly, in the Thai restaurant wearing just a sheer body stocking, which had to be just beautiful.
Well, if it's sheer, I mean, you're seeing everything then.
Yeah.
So that's basically indecent exposure, correct?
Yeah. The furious restaurant owner stormed in and told De Nino and his group that they cannot do this in Thailand. She told them to stop filming and demanded that they hand over their passports. The restaurant manager had also called the local police. It later emerged, and DeNino and his entourage were arrested. Mugshot with pressured admission of guilt and apology, he wrote. Guilty of what? No idea. No one telling me what the law was that I broke. He says he later found out that he was being charged with distribution of obscene content because the lap dance was streamed. He added that Kimberly is actually facing the most heat because police said her dress was showing too much breast and that it was too sexual for the public. DeNino said that after being arrested, he had been thrown into a filthy cell and was given a bucket with poop already in it to use as a toilet.
Ew.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to get arrested in Thailand. They have one of the worst jail systems in the world. That's the last place you want to go to jail. He posted an abject apology on Twitter saying, I did not know the severity of the actions that I have caused, and I was just trying to have fun. I'm sorry. We were drunk. We were in a room. I just didn't understand the severity of what I've done. DeNino has since shared updates on Discord, claiming he had to pay everyone's bail, which amounted to $12,000, and that he could be stuck in Thailand until the case comes to court next year. We all face heavy charges with a lot of jail time, he said. If I get 5 years, I'm just going to kill myself. I will not be able to survive Thai jail, he told his fans. He told them that he didn't feel able to stream more content until the trial was resolved. I'm in mental torment, he said. I cannot be myself. There you go.
I'm sorry, but if you're going to a foreign country, you should know better. You should brush up on their laws.
Yeah. And you should know not to do something like that in a foreign country.
Right.
I mean, come on. You know,
Goodness gracious.
You know you're going to end up with some sort of huge punishment like that.
Right.
I wouldn't even do that in America.
No. I won't even do it in my own home.
Yeah, right. Because you know there's going to be some public indecency law.
Yeah.
If you do that here. So why bother? I don't know. But that's why it's Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals, Mally.
Yeah. He sounded kind of dramatic. I won't be able to survive 5 years.
Not in Thai jail. Don't make me a lady boy. So, yeah, that's, but hey, you had it coming. Sorry, Mr. DeNino. That's the breaks. Them's the breaks. That'll do it for Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals today. I want to thank Mally Fox for filling in today. Tomorrow we've got Supernatural News, Mel.
Fun.
Yeah, lots of fun there. And then Thursday, we've got a huge program on tap. We have 3 of the casts of the Legion of Exorcists joining us.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, we'll have a roundtable going on Thursday. We'll talk about the season that was for the Legion of Exorcists. We'll recap it. And we will talk a little bit about we'll just call it the status of spirituality in America, in the world. We'll talk a little bit about whether demons are as much of a reality as we like to think in America, and whether their workload is as huge as we've been told in the media. So that'll come up on Thursday's show. That'll be Thursday's show. Scott Johnson will join us, along with Bishop Rita will be with us. And the third part of our show for Thursday, Reverend Sean Whittington, who's been on the show before. So there you go. Scott Johnson, Bishop Rita, and the Reverend Sean Whittington, all from Legion of Exorcists. So, yeah. So, big week this week. I want to thank Nick Edwards for being on the show today from True Crime Garage. A reminder to check out the links in the description of this program. Support True Crime Garage. They have that big show on today as well, talking about Richard Allen and talking about the new evidence that's come out against Richard Allen and the situation around Richard Allen and the killings of Libby and Abby. So check out that program as well. We have a link to True Crime Garage. We have a link to the book, The Delphi Murders, and we also have a link to the different charities that Nick Edwards is a part of. So check out those links in the description of the program. Mally, paranormalgirl.com, correct?
Yes.
And there's some recipes there. There's also some merchandise to check out. Mally will be at Michigan Paracon. So we'll have a link for Michigan Paracon and a link for paranormalgirl.com as well. We'll see you tomorrow for Supernatural News on Darkness Radio. For Mally Fox, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you so much for tuning in today for the best in true crime podcasting. This has been True Crime Tuesday.